Hello, my name's Niranjan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today's episode number 10, where we will be talking to Katie Bielefeld and learn how she developed the mastery of living with intention as her craft. Katie is the founder of Live Happy on Purpose, owner of Calloused Fitness, and is a holistic health coach operating her private practice. After fighting the on-again, off-again programs, body hate cycles of endless emotional eating, and self-destructive emotional processing after trauma, Katie was finally able to end the war against her body. After her own transformation, Katie's focus is solely to help women overcome their own struggles to love and honor their bodies through lasting, healthy lifestyle to end the war with their body. Katie and her husband Jordan reside in Iowa with their 5 children. Hello and welcome to Katie.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to come on the show. I'm so excited to learn more about Katie because the pieces of Katie that I do know, she's a pretty strong and powerful woman. And I'm curious to learn more about who you are.
Super.
What do you believe about yourself? And do you feel like it defines who Katie is?
I do now, yeah. I believe that I am a joy seeker. I like to wear that with a badge of honor. I like to say that I'm a joy seeker because I truly believe that you can find happiness. You get to choose that. That's something that you have to grow into knowing.
A joy seeker. I love that. I love that. So how did this happen? How did you become a joy seeker?
Actually, it's kind of funny. So they always say that if you want to kind of find out how bright your light is, you have to take it into the dark, right? As a young girl, I had a lot of dark, I call it, in my past. And so I am the survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I brought that with me for a long time. I kind of just like, I know you call it pebbles. Like we pick up these rocks and we put them in our backpack and we just hold them there and we leave that weight in us. I did that for a really long time and I thought it was serving a purpose for me. And so I held on to that anger and frustration and hatred. And then it almost transformed. Instead of me being angry at somebody else, it was this anger at myself. Mm-hmm. And then the self-blame and then the self-doubt. And then it turned into this self-hate. I got to the point about high school time where I really hated myself. I hated my body because I felt like I was unworthy. I grew up in a very Christian family, and so we wanted to be clean for marriage, right? That was a very real goal for women growing up, and I wasn't. And it hurt a lot. And so I hated myself. I hated the body that I was stuck in and everything that it said about me. Yeah, high school, I tried to take my own life. I thought that was the way out. And I was unsuccessful with that. Thanks God, right? Like thankfully. Unsuccessful. Yeah. Yes. And so very unsuccessful, thankfully. But that didn't end maybe the self-hatred. In fact, it kind of added to it a little bit because I couldn't even get that right. And so it was always like I just felt less than. Over time, you find people that kind of come alongside of you and they bring these little pieces of light into your darkness. They just sort of like light it up. And so I started on this healing process about the time I had my first 2 children because I needed to be whole for them. I started to kind of do this healing. I wasn't great at it, but I kept trying. I kept trying for them. And finally, in 2012, so now I have 3 kids by 2012, I found a coach. Mm-hmm. And it was this shift. I found a coach, and it wasn't about a goal anymore. It was about this internal journey that I was on discovering who I was. And up until that point, I hadn't had permission to be anyone. Like, I had already written who I was, as this disgusting, used, horrible person that would never be whole. And that permission gave me something. And so I set a goal and I decided I was going to do a powerlifting meet. Now, I don't know if you know anything about powerlifting, but it's you go and you do 3 lifts. You do a squat, a bench, and a deadlift. And you lift as much weight as possible in each one of those lifts. It's against yourself, but you really aren't competing against anybody else except for getting better than you were the last time you kind of like stepped on the platform. And that for me was the first time I ever learned body acceptance, like to accept my body as it was, because you have to fail. And that was the shift for me. That was the shift in finding something that allowed me to pivot, to make that switch.
Yes.
And I found my strength in that. I found my power. I found out that it didn't matter like where I had come from or what my body had been through. It was like, what was it capable of now? It was this incredible switch. And so that's where I made that switch. And from there, I realized everything I do is a choice. Every time I show up, I do something for myself. I prove to myself that I'm accepting myself in this moment as I am, in all of my failure, in all of that ugly stuff, in all of the rocks that I've kept in my backpack so far and I haven't let go of. That's okay. But I have the choice to take them out, like get rid of them and lighten my load and be that light. And so I've done that. I've just continued to just one at a time, every day, find something to just eliminate or lighten from myself. And so it's sort of transformed over time into just saying, I'm a joy seeker. If you are always seeking joy, if you are always truly trying to be or find happiness, you will be happy. And it's not like it's a destination. It's the always goal. It's an enduring goal. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from for me.
Wow. That's really powerful. That's powerful how you got the guidance, got the support, and I guess on many platforms got the strength, literally and figuratively, to really move forward with your life and to really go into owning your own power and owning your own strength.
Absolutely.
And that freedom of choice that you didn't recognize that you had. See, the interesting thing that I find in your story is you'd already had 2 children at that point, right? So my analogy, my perception, because I'm not a mother, going through that birthing process or that pregnancy stage or bringing life into this planet, onto this earth, is quite an empowering process because there's a lot that actually happens through that, right? So I would think that in itself would be an act of loving your body and nurturing your body and nurturing yourself because you're creating this beautiful being. Yet your power and your strength came after that.
Gosh, I wish I could say that. I wish I could say that the birthing, the growing a human could have done that. But it wasn't. My first 2 pregnancies were sad. I was embarrassed, been married, and it was almost too soon. You feel that judgment from other people. There's always that expectation that you place on yourself based on what you perceive other people to expect of you. I was harsh on myself because of that. And then 10 months later, I had another baby. And so they were both born in the same year. And so that embarrassment at the time, it was, almost like I had gone through this trauma. Then I was like making up for it somehow. So yeah, they were not empowering situations. It was almost just adding to the fuel of, the things that I believed about myself that were untrue.
Maybe in an element, it was another way of accepting you and accepting your body because you can create that. Just because we can do it, it doesn't mean our whole heart is in it. And by no means am I dismissing or judging in any aspect the process that you went through in having the pregnancies and bringing these two beautiful babies into this world. It's an internal dialogue is what I'm more curious on, because I know there are many women out there who choose to have and bring life into this world to fill maybe their own void without recognizing what that void really even is. Yeah, that's kind of that's what nudged that question.
It's interesting that you point that out, because I do feel like maybe on that subconscious level, you end up trying to fill a space.
So now you had that strong, I was going to say awakening, but maybe it really is an awakening in owning and taking control of your life, and really taking control of your life in all facets of your physical body, of your mental space, and how you choose to empower you. And now you've transpired this beautiful message to supporting others in what they do. So tell me, what do you feel out of all of this is a calling that you have to do for why you are here?
And in my heart, I know it's a calling, because I always tell people, like, I want women to end this war that they are at with their body. For me, it was a true war. I would just eat terrible foods, or beat myself up in the gym, or condemn myself for the way I looked, for the way I felt, for the way I was impeded in movement. Not always at this weight, maybe a larger weight too, but I never felt a confidence. I always felt a disgust. Mm-hmm. And so I was always at this war with my body for what it couldn't be, for what it couldn't do, and for what it didn't look like.
Yeah.
And I always would try to fix it, to fix myself. And it never worked. It never worked, because inevitably I would get overwhelmed and tired of trying to fix myself. And I would constantly get set off. If you've dealt with trauma, you feel these triggers. You get set off, and things will like throw you into this downward spiral of having to process these emotions that come up out of the blue when you're not ready for them. And over time, I realized it didn't matter what weight loss program I was on, what workout program I was doing, or what detox or what cleanse or anything that I was doing. I was never going to see it through to the end. It was traumatizing, again, to never finish something, to never succeed, even at a 5-day cleanse, because I would be set off, and I would stop, and I would, spiral out of control with these emotions that I was not willing to just stop and be aware of and heal before I moved on. When I started to recognize that it wasn't going to work for me, and it wasn't going to work for any of the other women that I was already helping, unless we dealt with that emotional processing piece of it, the mental piece of it, the ability to bring that self-belief into the equation. That for me was when I realized this is what I was meant to do. I need to be that light, to shine that light in those women's dark places, and let them see when we move all of these things around and we heal and we let that healing process begin, all of the programs will work for you. You're not broken.
Yeah.
You're not broken. It's a choice to come back from that and be unbroken.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's recognizing that, and recognizing you have the power to look at that choice. Are we looking at a glass half full, or are we looking at a glass half empty? You have that choice. And I think some people may feel that just from what society look and feels like, that we don't have a choice. Little decisions and little things like that often feel like where our power is taken away.
I think you hit the nail on the head there with the power being taken away, because that's kind of what I had always felt like. Like I didn't have the power to do or to stand up for myself. And so when you have this belief, you bring that, internal. And so I was acting from that internal self-belief, that limiting belief of myself, that I didn't have the power to speak up, to recreate myself, or to choose.
Yeah. Which ultimately from my perspective, all stems on previous experiences, which you had very vulnerably and very candidly shared with us. So it all comes from somewhere. Every single action, reaction, and thought and word and anything that we do, it comes from a deeper place. Whether we're aware of it or not, that's a whole different conversation. But what are some of the attributes that connect you to your life purpose?
I'm naturally a giver. Like I almost feed off the energy of being able to bring people into that awareness, being able to bring them to that realization. And so that naturally just feeds into what I like to do. Coaching for me, I'm a curious person, and I really like to be curious with other people. And so that feeds into that as well, being able to be curious and help people, come at it from just a lightened sense of let's be aware. It really helps to allow the healing process to take place without that heavy crushing feeling having to kind of seep into the conversation. So I also really, really, really love health and fitness now, in a way that honors my body, and kind of comes from a place of what next? Like, what am I capable of? And trying to push that human potential a little bit higher.
Yes.
So I like being my own human science experiment too. So that's another area that makes it really just interesting and fun. And when I can come to the table and I love what I do on not just a sense of like, I'm going to fix you, but I really love what I do and I want you to love it too. It doesn't really feel so much like there's a hierarchy when I work with clients. It's almost like we get to be friends and we come together and we experience this journey together. And so that puts us both in this place of extreme power in finding the human potential. It's hard to explain until, you're in that moment of coaching and you realize, oh, this is it.
Yeah. And I think that probably one of the key areas or one of the biggest elements that makes you so successful in what you do, because you're with them side by side on that journey. There is no hierarchy. There is no teacher-student. You're both learning and going through that process at the same time. The magic of coaching, the really key questions that align with those aha moments that trigger in that peer-to-peer conversation or walk down the road or tire rolling in your case, I guess. Those are the bigger attributes that I think that you bring that are so powerful in coaching. And do you think some of the skills and the avenues and the ways that you coach now are contributed from how you was coached when you installed a coach to support you and guide you through your process?
Yeah, I think so. I think for sure I've kind of cherry picked the things that, you get the feedback or you find the trends of what works for most of your clients and you continue to add those to the opportunity. And so for most people, when you're trying to do a program where you're bringing yourself to a higher level, right? I used to sign up for this excellent 28-day challenge and or the bodybuilding.com, ultimate transformation challenge. But in reality, those things didn't work. It was the coaching, because what happens is you have to go below the surface. You have to have that accountability. And I know people are kind of like that cliche, like it's not about the end goal, it's about the journey, right? But the goal also, really brings us to that feeling of success. For me, it's always been my highest point of success when I'm able to do this, to talk to a live person. And so I incorporate that a lot in my program. In fact, the first 7 days you work with me, you have to talk to me all 7 days.
Oh,
I require it because I think it's so important that for every day for 7 days, you have that at the top of mind. You're remembering that you did this for you and you need to believe in yourself. And so, especially for me, I know if I feel like I'm not in it, I won't stay in it. And so being able to have that person call me up and, say, hey, how's it going today? 10-minute check-in, 5-minute conversation, that's fine. But it keeps you going. Human connection is the focal point of my experience in coaching. So that signature VIP, whatever you want to call it, coaching experience, one-on-one, that's the focal point. And I think that is probably the most powerful thing. You can find a workout on Pinterest. Let's not, sugarcoat this. You can find great recipes on Pinterest, but ultimately you want to find a coach, even if it's not me, it's got to be somebody that aligns with your values so much that you can have those conversations that need to be had in order to transform those emotional processing triggers.
Right.
Get out of that stuck.
So powerful when you can recognize and observe that. And I totally agree with you. Staying on top of mind and having that huge accountability is probably more of the work than one would actually count for, because the action items you can do, getting to the action items, which is 70-80% of it probably, that's the key. So you talked about for people to align with you in terms of your coaching style, the formula that you have, the pieces of Katie that you offer and you want to share, those values and those deeper aspects of you, did they change as you went on your own transformational journey?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. I used to be like the Shape magazine reader, like I would read Shape magazine and I would find the woman in there. That is what I want to look like, right? Like it was always about what I looked like, what other people thought of me, and am I living up to their expectations? So a lot of times as I was first starting out in personal training, not coaching yet, that's what my clients wanted too, right? They wanted to just look a certain way and fit the mold of what society kind of told us. As I went through my own healing process and sort of realized that like I was going to accept my body, I also accepted myself. If I'm extra and I am way out there, sometimes I don't, align with everybody. They aren't ready for this energy. Just the overabundance of like extraordinary positivity that comes out. Like you can keep some of that to yourself. They'll let me know.
And just to clarify, it does ooze out of you. I've had a few conversations with you, so I want to just confirm for the listeners, it's definitely there and it's real, and you do ooze it. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's okay. Nope. I had one client, she told me I am relentlessly positive. As I started realizing it wasn't about the exterior or what other people perceived I should be doing, I was able to take it inward and really just make it about how I feel. I'm not tired anymore. When you're processing trauma and you're unhealed from trauma, it shows up as depression. And so a lot of times it's hard to just get out of bed in the morning. It's hard to stay out of bed. It's hard to stay out of the pantry. And it's hard to just function, at the level most people function at. And so to get yourself out of that, I've realized it's about feeding myself in more than one way, spiritually, mentally, physically feeding myself, nourishing my body in a different way. And so whatever it looks like on the outside, I'm totally okay with, because I'm working on the inside. I can walk outside now and I can run into people and I'm not looking at my feet when I run into them. I'm looking them in the eyes and I'm smiling. That's a big piece of it. And so for my clients, that's the goal now, the confidence, and the feeling good about themselves inside, but also feeling good inside, feeling healthy. And so that's about what you put in. It's not about what you take away from yourself.
Right. I could see how that would translate so much more on so many different levels in where you've been to where you're going, to where you're at and where it's going to take you. Very powerful.
Yes.
What's next for Katie?
What's next for Katie? Well, before COVID-19, I really, really, really wanted to craft a very powerful, maybe TED Talk, maybe, keynote speech. I would love to, if people would have me, share my story and then empower women on that level to really, really look inward and heal themselves inside, and feel good about themselves from the inside. And it will definitely just suit outside. I really want to help them do that. I do that in coaching. I see myself continuing to kind of just grow that practice and really hone that. I've really niched down, calling myself a fitness coach, to a coach for women that are specifically going through that emotional trauma processing to overcome those obstacles from that. Because I found a lot of my clients were already going through that. And so to be able to really hone in on that and specialize has been something I felt called to do. I do. I want to work with women that really need that extra support in those areas of going under the surface and finding their own power inside.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen a really interesting transformation when you move your body in a physical way through fitness, that it does something on a mental space too. But no doubt you see the marriage, you see the connection between the two of them together. And I think it's such a beautiful story and a blessing, I guess, really, for all the women that you are supporting, that you are walking with them side by side on their journey. So
I love that you called it a marriage. I think that's the absolute definition of what's going on here, the marriage between the physical and the mental aspect of that healing.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're putting it both together. And then with that, then you become more whole in who you are, right, as a person. And ultimately, that's what we all want to be. We don't want to be only parts of ourselves. Like you said, the other part sitting in the pantry and the other part sitting in bed because you're suffering from depression or anything like that. We want the whole part of us to show up because there is a great reason and there is a great purpose for us here. Is to live life on purpose and happy, right?
Yes, yeah, happy on purpose. I think everybody's ultimate goal is to live life at that full expression, whatever that might be for them.
How are you inspiring your children or other people who maybe not bought into the program or the coaching perspective, but they see Katie in a different world, be it your family, your childhood friends, or anybody who knew the old Katie who now knows the new Katie? What does that dynamic look like?
That one's a new dynamic. It's been kind of fun. Recently only have I started kind of sharing more of my deeper pieces of my past and letting myself be seen for my family from their perspective. Mm-hmm. They're seeing me very vulnerable, very willing to let people, I wouldn't say empathize with me, but feel with me, have that feeling of their own situations in the midst of me sharing mine. And so they are able to go into their own emotion. It's a unique experience when you have young kids because, they get to see you in that vulnerable state, but they also, from a young age, recognize that people everywhere, people all around us, are carrying so much weight that we don't even know about. And so for my family, my direct family, for my kids for sure, you can see the transition in their approach to other people, especially as now we're kind of getting out of COVID, that there's this acceptance and an awareness. Maybe there's more behind your story. So when you're getting mad at me or you're getting upset, there might be something behind that. When somebody's having a bad day, there's an outburst. It might be more behind that story. And so they're kind of looking for that behind whatever is happening. That was a beautifully unexpected circumstance that's kind of happened from this vulnerability. So, yeah.
Yeah. What a powerful gift you can give your children, for them to take control and become more compassionate to the other person's journey and story at such a young age.
Yeah.
They're going to have some pretty powerful relationships.
I believe so. I think as teenagers, to be able to understand that everybody has a story, has something. I don't think many young kids kind of wrap their heads around that at that age. So.
Yeah. And with that, recognizing that there is a story, there's also an element of compassion. Whether the compassion comes in wholeheartedly and knowingly, but there's a separation and a little bit of a softer space, compassion of there's something else behind that, and I'm going to pull back a little bit to give you that space. So they're doing it so intuitively, which I think is a real testament to you and how you're parenting your children. It's very powerful. And I think it's much more needed in this world. So, well
thanks. I think that my favorite part of all of this was the other day I had walked in and there was this, disagreement between my son. So he's 13 and my daughter is 12. And she was upset and he said, "Would you like me to just hold this space for you a second?" Oh, is he coaching my daughter right now? And so it was one of those things where you stand there and just revel in this. I did that. I've created this. And so him offering to hold a space for her was one of these things will always sit with me. Like if I do nothing else in life, I've allowed my son that ability to understand how powerful that is.
That's beautiful. And you're giving me such goosebumps that it was your son holding space for your daughter. Because typically it's the girls who hold space for men, right? Or for boys. So that is really powerful. And no doubt a whole shift in itself of men coming into that feminine power, that vulnerability, that compassionate space, and really creating that balance of, yes, I'm the man and we're all action oriented, and the whole stereotypical attributes that men have taught us in the past is now shifting, and we're seeing that through examples of you raising your son and your children, which is very powerful. It almost makes me want to sit and think about the dynamic of that feminine energy that you hold and the masculine energy that we hold, because we all have both, right? How you've been able to take back your power to a certain degree in a feminine way, but using it, I want to say, more in a masculine way because it's the fitness piece of it. But yet, there's another bigger element of you, because you are raising children, that softer side, that more gentle side, that nurturing side. Have you recognized the shift within yourself?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the attraction to fitness in the beginning was from that masculine side. I almost was trying not to be feminine at all anymore. Kind of growing up, you wanted to just, not be anything feminine. And so it's funny that you bring those two pieces in, because we do have both, but sometimes they fight, right? Like, you don't want to let that masculine side of you out, or you don't want to let that feminine soft side stay out. And so you've brought some more curiosity into the story.
Now we're stepping into the age, what I call the divine feminine. We're embracing that feminine energy more and creating more of an internal balance. I find that there are a lot more women who are ready to tap into that divine feminine energy, but doing it in a masculine way, doing it in a way and in a format that has been taught to them. When you're in a position of power, this is how you behave, because that's what's modeled to all of us, right? By tapping into the feminine energy in a more authentic way and from a truly heart-centered way that's authentic for you, Katie, is going to be very different to anybody else. So I'm curious how you're able to tap into that softer feminine side of you now.
Oh man. Okay, so it's funny you bring this up, because for the last 5-6 months now, I've actually been kind of cycle syncing. And I have come through a few cycles now of my own and really tapped in and honored each of those phases of a woman's cycle. And I've changed my training programs to match my cycle. I've changed my eating habits to match my cycle. I've changed my sleeping habits. In this process, my family's here. I mean, they're in this with me. My sons, my husband, my daughters, all of us. And so I'm very open about just discovering what this will do, what this feels like. There's an immense sense of flow. Pun maybe intended, but that euphoria of flow, that no matter what is going on, like I have this sense of control, that I know in what stage, in what phase I am in right now, and what is going to best support me and allow me to be my best self and really to live at that full expression of life. And that is feminine energy to me. That is divine feminine energy. When you are so in tune with what is going on internally and externally, you're feeding into that and honoring what's going on. So I'm not so much like, I'm turning the masculine as feminine as I can. I do put my lifting days on the best days of my cycle, but it's been a fun experience, and I will definitely continue it.
Yeah, such a blessing, really, isn't it? I think gone are those days, I think should be gone, when we look at our cycle as a bit of a curse. Darn things here again. But really using the wisdom and using the insight that comes along with it. Like you said, do lifting on certain days and recognizing when your body needs extra nurturing. So we're using the laws of nature dictate how we live and how we transpire and grow and expand into who we are. I think are such magical opportunities that are so easily dismissed. It's very unfortunate. So let's hope and let's get the word out there.
Yes, let's push the, I don't know what kind of living you would call it, the feminine energy tuning into your cycle. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mitigate men on their journey at all. It's to enhance their awareness because, yes, they may not have a menstrual cycle, but they'll be able to tap into a softer and more vulnerable aspect of themselves. So I think those are key attributes that they, in turn, can use and be in flow with us, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. Let's bring them into our flow.
Absolutely. We've been in their flow for a little too long, so now I think it's time for us to take the lead a little bit more. But yeah. Well, Katie, this has been such a delightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all your vulnerabilities and all your hurts, but most importantly, all your successes and powerful stories of how you want to reshape the world for women in what they do and how they do it. And not to forget those beautiful children that you have, the nurturing gift qualities that you are installing in them to make them much more powerful human beings. So thank you, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
I look forward to next time.
I do too. Let's do this again.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.